Overprotective wife causing marital strain, how to navigate. My wife, let's call her Laura, and I have been together for 14 years, married for 9. We met in high school and have been through a lot together. We made plans for our future, like finishing college before starting a family, but things didn't go according to plan. Laura unexpectedly got pregnant, despite using protection. We weren't thrilled, but we adapted and welcomed our baby girl into the world. During Laura's pregnancy, she faced anxiety and fears about the safety of our baby. She was hesitant to leave the house and felt overwhelmed by the responsibility of motherhood. These fears continued after our daughter was born. Laura didn't want anyone else, not even me, to help care for our child. She was exhausted but refused to let others assist, fearing something might happen to the baby. Over time, as our children grew, Laura's possessiveness and protectiveness lingered. She rarely allowed anyone, apart from me and occasionally her mother, to be around the kids. Our intimacy life suffered, and Laura became hyper-aware of any potential risks to our children's safety. She was resistant to sending them to school or letting them spend time with friends. Her fears intensified after our daughter suffered a minor accident at school, which led to an unwarranted outburst towards the other child's parents. I lost my temper with Laura, frustrated by her overprotectiveness and refusal to compromise. We have been distant since, communicating only about the children. I firmly believe our kids should have a normal school experience, despite her desire to homeschool them due to safety concerns. I love Laura dearly and know she loves me too. Our relationship was once unalived with admiration and support. It's disheartening to see her transform from a timid person to an overprotective mother. I want us to find a balance between being cautious parents and allowing our children to have a normal life. I booked a therapy appointment to seek guidance and hope Laura will be open to it. I've also made the personal decision to undergo a vasectomy after our third child's arrival, as I'm concerned about how Laura will be with another baby. I want to mend our relationship and find a way to ease Laura's anxieties about our children's safety. Any advice on how to navigate this would be greatly appreciated. Watching our relationship crumble is difficult, but I am determined to find a solution for the sake of our family. Update: overprotective wife causing marital strain, how to navigate. Hello, everyone. Last month, I posted on Reddit seeking advice about my overprotective wife, which was causing strain in our marriage. This is an update on the situation. Warning: some parts of this post may be disturbing to some readers. Now on to the update. To say that things happen would be an understatement. 2 days after posting on Reddit, my wife discovered the post on my phone. She noticed a notification while tending to our sick youngest child. Initially, she assumed I was having an affair and decided to quickly go through my phone while I was asleep. We have each other's passwords, and it's not a problem in our relationship. However, I had forgotten to mute notifications from Reddit, which led to her discovering the whole post and comments that night. The next morning, I woke up and couldn't find my wife in bed. I assumed she was with our sick child, but she wasn't. After searching the house, I found her sitting alone in the dark living room. Her face was tear-stained, and she seemed disconnected from her surroundings. I became scared, thinking something terrible had happened. It was then that I found my phone in her hands, and my heart sank. I tried to get her to talk, but she remained unresponsive. After what felt like a long time, she looked me in the eye and asked, "Am I dangerous to them?" Her voice broke, and it pained me to hear her like that. I didn't know how to answer her. She mentioned that the comments said she would harm the children. She seemed on the verge of a panic attack, and it was terrifying to witness. Eventually, she asked to be left alone and continued staring into nothingness, not responding to me. When our children woke up for school, they went in search of their mother, as was their usual routine. However, the moment she saw them approaching, she appeared terrified and quickly retreated to our room, shutting herself inside. The children were confused and frightened, so I decided to take them to their grandparents' house for the day, allowing them to skip school. They were excited about the change and got ready quickly. Later, my daughter approached me and asked about her mother's situation. She displayed remarkable intuition for her age. I explained that her mother was feeling a little unwell and needed time to rest and get better. My daughter suggested hugging her mother when she felt like crying because it helps. It broke my heart to realize that my daughter had witnessed her mother having anxiety attacks, and I had been oblivious to it. I dropped off the children at their grandparents and returned home. My wife refused to communicate, eat, move, or do anything. I worried that she might harm herself, but she never engaged in any self-destructive behavior during pregnancy. It was noticeable that she was displeased when I informed her that the kids were with her parents. Fresh comments from the thread were still on her mind, so she fought me on this issue. The following week was incredibly challenging. I extended the children's stay at their grandparents and asked my wife's mother to provide support while explaining the situation. Both grandparents were understanding and ensured that the kids got to school every day. I informed my wife that I had scheduled therapy sessions for her and that I would be taking her, regardless of her resistance. Surprisingly, this was the only battle she didn't fight. It was heart-wrenching to find her sobbing herself to sleep every night. She experienced frequent panic attacks, and I would occasionally find her talking to herself when I returned home from work. She attended her therapy sessions, but initially, it seemed like there was no improvement. She remained silent. Since she was on maternity leave, her work wasn't affected. I took her to her parents' house every other day because I could sense her suffocation from not seeing the kids. I knew she was conflicted and found it difficult to ask me to take her to see them. While we visited for breakfast, my wife avoided them, only observing from a distance. Our son tried to reach out and hug her, as he missed her dearly, but her panic attacks were triggered by his attempts. It was a terrible week. I spent extra time with our children to ensure they understood that we loved them and that their mother loved them deeply. I explained that their mother needed help, was sick, and that I was doing everything to ensure she would be okay. After 2 weeks, I brought the children back home. By that time, my wife had attended over 5 therapy sessions. While it wasn't perfect, she started talking to the children again, though she maintained some distance. I took on the primary caregiver role, but she guided me on what to do since she knew the children better than I did. She began conversing with me and her mother, which was a small improvement. About a week ago, after one of her therapy sessions, she told me that she needed to have a serious talk. After putting the children to bed, we locked ourselves in our room to discuss matters. My wife finally opened up about something she had always wanted to share with me but hadn't found the right time. The therapy sessions had allowed her to realize that it wasn't fair to keep it from me. As I mentioned in my previous post, I suspected that something happened during her first pregnancy, which drastically affected her attitude. Sadly, I was right. When my wife was around 24 weeks pregnant, almost 9 years ago, she had a life-altering encounter. At the time, she was still in university and had quit her part-time job at a diner due to the pregnancy. However, she continued visiting the diner to study when she didn't have classes since it was within walking distance. On one such day, she entered the women's restroom and heard someone in distress. It was a woman moaning in pain. Concerned, my wife approached the stall and offered help. The woman was hesitant at first but eventually opened the door. It turned out she was miscarrying and was around 17 weeks pregnant. This came as a shock to my wife, but she didn't hesitate to assist. The woman was bleeding and my wife tried to comfort her while the fetus was being expelled. The woman requested that my wife catch the fetus so it could be buried respectfully instead of being flushed down the drain. My wife described the overwhelming feeling of holding the lifeless and bloody fetus, which was the size of her hand. She wrapped the baby in cloth and helped the woman to the hospital, as she was still bleeding. My wife stayed with her throughout the day. The woman had lost consciousness halfway through the ordeal but regained it later. During this time, she shared her story with my wife. She explained that her boyfriend was abusive and had pooper, which led to the damage during her pregnancy. This was the second time she had lost a child. A year prior, she left her 7- and 4-year-old daughters in his care when she went to work. Regrettably, he neglected them while throwing a party, resulting in a tragic accident. The younger daughter, aged 4, chased a cat into the road and was pooped by a speeding car, instantly ending her life. As a father, hearing about another man's negligence enraged me. It was unfathomable how this woman continued to stay with him for another year. He was a pathetic excuse for a human being. The woman told my wife that nobody would care for her child as much as she would. She advised my wife never to trust anyone else with her children because no one would ensure their safety as diligently as she could. That incident changed my wife's brain chemistry to the extent that she began perceiving everything and everyone as threats to our children. It finally made sense why she was so cautious even during pregnancy. I can't imagine the trauma she experienced when she held a lifeless fetus in her hands. It's no wonder. She avoided any situation that could potentially lead to such an outcome. It also explained why she couldn't trust anyone else with our kids. Perhaps she trusted me because she knew deep down that I would never harm her or the children. Delivering a miscarried baby in the second trimester must have been an unimaginable experience. My heart aches for her whenever I think about it. It's maddening how that one day altered our lives so drastically. My wife expressed her profound love for our children and her dedication to them. However, she also acknowledged that they are separate individuals who need to grow independently with her support. She didn't claim to fully comprehend this yet, but she needs time. The therapy sessions have shown some improvements in her attitude, and I remain hopeful that she will continue to progress. It will take time for her to unlearn years of trauma-related behaviors. Her therapist provides regular updates, and the prognosis sounds positive. Medication for anxiety and stress has been recommended after the baby is born, as she is due in a week. I still feel nervous about the arrival of our third child, but I won't let it interfere with her therapy. I'm determined to ensure she continues the treatment for her own well-being and that of our children.